Alright guys, Dylan here back with more NieR Replicant. It's already nighttime, it's really late, it's like 11:30, I'm tired. I got out of work pretty late. Yeah, we're gonna continue on. Gonna listen to the Roundtable podcast as well. So let's do that, and then also I'm gonna be eating something because I'm hungry, and I'm obviously very professional, so yeah, let's continue on.
So basically what we have here with the state of the house, separate from all of this Brent stuff,
Where are we going?
I've been talking about it on the live feed updates. It's ever evolving, but the basic
Yeah, we just finished the
structure of what we
law
have
of the
here
robotics.
is that the kings, which are Kyland, Claire, and Tiffany, they are in the best spot in the house right now. They are playing the middle of basically everyone. They are aligned with the kings with the royal flush that Derek X is involved in. They are aligned with the aces in the mafia,
Is that what we're down to?
which is mostly fake, but some members of it think it's good enough that they don't need to target the queens. And then in addition to that, you know, because Derek X is involved in royal flush, they're good with him. Hannah is in with the cookout, feels great about all three of the queens. They're good with her. And then Whitney is the only loose attachment there via the mafia, or just the fact that she has bigger fish to fry. Then, of course, with the Jokers, 2 out of the 3 of them are in the cookout, which keeps them safe with them. And then the other being Brittany, the only person who's even mentioned anybody from the Queen's name as a potential nominee, not even really as a target. And as of right now, she has 0 intention of nominating anybody from the Queens. The Queens are in a very good spot. So the Queens are playing that game. The Kings, the only full team left once Brent leaves, are currently in a spot where they are kind of locked in a war against the aces while the queens sit back and watch.
So work was fine today.
As of today, as
really
of
up until
this hour,
the
planning on
and where I had to stay a bit longer.
Trying to go for the HOH.
Still, not a bad day. I am tired though, not like physically tired. I'm just more so like just actually tired.
Why that changed today.
I did actually take some sleep medicine too, because I'd rather just get a good night's sleep here. So yeah, again, don't know how much I'll be recording for here.
Kind of trying to get a shot taken at the Kings.
I was going to do at least one
episode.
episode.
They are less willing to win and take it themselves, despite Derek X trying to urge them to. Hannah and Whitney think that they're pretty safe with the house and don't think they need to be the ones to take the shot. Derek X is trying to tell them, you need to do this, you're in trouble if you don't, but he can't give them all of his information because that would expose his own position in the game. And then the Jokers are running wild. There is still not a 100% locked in plan for them, but as of right now, the Queens have sort of helped solidify, or could help solidify, where the Jokers are, because in the war between the Aces and the Kings, Derek X has been pushing hard to get this target off of the Aces and onto the Kings, and Tiffany and Claire have started to come around to the idea that the Kings need a shot taken at them. Kyland was very slow to agree to this, but just today he finally has seemed to come around that the Kings should have a shot taken at them. And because of that, they now plan to try to convince, or try to help convince Whitney and Hannah to win the HOH so that a shot can be taken at the Kings, meaning primarily Alyssa or Christian, so that they can head into the following week with 3 Kings, 3 Aces, them both still going at it, the Queens still getting to sit in the middle. And to help bolster their odds of a shot being taken at the Kings, Tiffany has been speaking with some of the Jokers and making sure that they are on board for this shot as well. As of right now, the most recent conversation between Tiffany and Brittany was Brittany leading the conversation, explaining to Tiffany why they need to take the shot at Christian and Alyssa, which worked out very well for Tiffany and her desires at the moment. But in all of this, things could still shift, because Whitney has approached Alyssa and Christian with another alliance proposal, saying that they should work together with X and Derek X, and that she doesn't really care for Hannah, and that's part of why they're willing to take the shot at Hannah right now. But This news has gone back to Xavier, who currently doesn't intend to tell anybody about it because he's worried it will rile them up. But if Derek X gets involved and gets wind of this, he likely is going to tell the Queens. And if the Queens catch wind of the fact that Whitney is talking about this sort of thing, they may change their mind once again and start to target Whitney again, which may give Derek X incentive to not tell them about it if and when he does learn about it. So there's still plenty going on and plenty in regards to who may or may not be targeted next week. But for the most part, that is the basic structure of what's happening just this week. The long-term structure is still something that we could go over, but is a whole separate...
I don't think it's done.
Whew. You need some water.
I was literally about to do the same. Whew.
You need some water. And the only way I kept up with this is by your tweets. I was like, thank God that you're tweeting about this. There's no way that I would be able to latch onto it. It literally is so many moving parts. And even I feel like Xavier got involved with like saying something. I'm like, yo, why are you saying this? And I was so confused, so mind boggled by it. So it was a lot of like question marks. And this is leading up to Thursday, and like who is going to win and what are they going to do? And so
It really is like Game of Thrones.
Yep.
With like the
I never
different
watched that
houses.
show.
It's so like Game of Thrones with the different houses, and they're all like competing. And then some people are like betraying other people in their house, and like, you know, there's different alliances, and they're working together for certain purposes, but not for others. It's very funny.
I am really proud, and I'm hoping that Derek X knows what to keep to himself and what to expose. But I'm really happy about how he's going through this a little bit. Even though it could get sticky, I have hope that he knows information to keep to himself, and he knows information that he can tell like to the Queens or whatever. And so fingers crossed on him. But I'm really excited for him, even getting into this stock watch.
All right. Well, let's quickly try to go over some of the long-term alliances and relationships as well, and then we'll get into the stock watch. So.
Also, I saw an alliance chart on Reddit, and it was so funny because Brent was in 2 like fake alliances and no real alliances. It was really funny.
That's so depressing.
Cool, Brent. Yikes, not doing so well.
So the teams are obviously alliances to some degree, but the biggest alliance right now, of course, is the Royal Flush. But it's barely an alliance at this point, considering half of the Royal Flush is trying to take a shot at the other half, meaning the Queens plus Derek X are trying to get a shot taken at the Kings to weaken them. And so this alliance likely isn't too long for this world at the moment, depending on what happens with the HOHs. Within this alliance, you have those 4, Derek X and the Queens, have formed an alliance called the Detectives, and this is an alliance that also likely isn't going to last, but it represents that these 4 are working together pretty closely. Derek X has a close relationship with Kyland and a close relationship with Tiffany. He's also working with Hannah and Whitney as part of his team. He's also been developing a relationship with Azza that kind of got put on hold because of the whole wild card thing. It seems like he's starting to maybe get back on track.
Yeah,
They did have that conversation today that I
this
talked
may be the
about.
last episode for a little while, because tomorrow morning I'm going to record videos. Try to finish this batch of videos, and tomorrow night I'll stream, but that should leave me open from Thursday on to have a decent amount of time to play NieR here. And again, I would like to get ending A by the end of that.
Most loyal to each other, and they tell each other the most amount of things, but I think they do also recognize each other as potentially their own biggest threats to the win, but I'm still not sure exactly how that's going to play out.
I forgot that I'm not drinking water.
Derek X both seem to recognize that Kyland and Tiffany are the power
drinking
players
water, but
in
it's
the whole
flavored
group,
water.
and they both have been trying to play the other off the other.
I didn't realize I'm in the top 100 in stock watch now.
Says to Kyland
cool.
things about Tiffany, and to Tiffany things about Kyland. Claire is more focused on Tiffany, talking about Kyland. She's trying to throw Kyland under the bus as much as possible, and she seems to be gaining some traction. So that's all happening over there. Then, meanwhile, on the Kings, of course, you have Kyland working closely with X and with Sarah Beth. That's where he has 2 of his numbers. Sarah Beth is currently trying to target Hannah because she finds her threatening. Then you have Alyssa and Christian, who are currently trying to work on their own structure.
bone structure.
Can you still hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah. I hope this isn't another moment where Jacob takes control and then he's spinning around. That was so funny. I love that.
I don't fucking care. It's so
Derek,
boring.
come back. Don't leave me alone here.
Kristen and Alyssa are currently trying to make 3 separate Final Fours, one with the Kings, one with Claire and Tiffany, one with Derek X and Kyland. The one they would be the most loyal to, meaning the one they want to actually bring to the end, is the one with Claire and Tiffany. They actually have recently, just today, been talking about how they feel like Kyland and Derek X should be the first to go of the Royal Flush in general. When that is going to happen, it could come down to who gets targeted when, but primarily, even just today, Christian said he does not trust Kyland at all, and wants Kyland gone perhaps even before Derek X, because he feels like Derek X would be more lost without Kyland. Kyland would have other things if Derek X left, so they need to be looking at Kyland. That's kind of where they currently stand. They have not made much progress with those Final Fours. They should be getting to it if they want to, because as of right now, Claire and Tiffany are targeting them. That's happening there for their long-term plans. Of course, the Cookout is still working together, and this is still a factor. Many of the members of the Cookout, primarily, maybe not many, but Kyland and Tiffany have talked about the Cookout in terms of let's at least get them to jury, and then from there, we'll see. Kyland is the most on board with that. Kyland seems to be willing to drop it as soon as jury hits. Tiffany at least represents.
Oh my fucking god, this is never gonna end. I don't fucking care.
More dedicated to it. Xavier seems to be very dedicated to the Cookout, very much wanting to get the Cookout members as far as possible. Hannah also seems very dedicated to it, despite not actually knowing the name and only being an honorary member.
Are you fucking serious? We'll redo this entire thing.
And then Azza and Big D have said some things about the Cookout. They primarily do not see Hannah as part of it really at all.
Oh my god, this is actually from the beginning, isn't it?
That they also have some issues with some of the people in the Cookout, so they, I think, wouldn't betray it outright. They certainly have bigger fish to fry,
What? Didn't I pick blue
they are
last
also
time?
not necessarily the most loyal to the group either. So while I do think the Cookout is still a very powerful force in the game, it is definitely not the most cohesive group at the moment. And let's see, am I missing anything else? Probably. Hannah is currently trying to go after the Kings, but she's not willing to win anything to do it. She thinks she's close with Whitney, but Whitney has recently been throwing her under the bus. So Whitney's long-term prospects in the game include trying to work with, or trying to pretend at least to work with the Kings.
Was it
she
green
actually
then?
seems to want to work with, I don't even know what her long-term prospects are at this point. She's kind of all over the place.
Okay, so it must be 23 then.
Mentioned that Tiffany and Kyland are on her radar. Whether that gets back to them soon enough for it to matter will also be interesting to see. The Jokers are still, trying to do their own thing, currently thinking about targeting the Kings. So this, the long-term stuff is also all over the place, and very subject to change as things
Wait, what?
change.
Does it change every time?
This is the structure.
I'm so confused.
And it will change slightly.
It must be changing every
over
time.
the course of the next week, and then we'll say it again next week. Like, things are changing by the hour, by the minute.
I completely agree. I think because I kind of viewed like Tiffany and Kylan as like the power like couple in a sense, like they're like actively making the moves, but since people are now like their eyes are open and everyone has their number now, it's kind of a lot more scary. And so it's kind of like sporadic groups targeting different groups, and it's kind of like I don't know what's going to happen, and no one I feel like is at the pinnacle of the house. I don't feel like one. Well,
I'm so
in a
confused.
sense, I could say kind of like Derek X is in the sense a lot of the middle in this game, but I don't feel like there's one sole group of power that's leading the charge, and so that's like really cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the Queens are probably in that spot more than anyone else.
Control.
But they don't have like total control.
Yeah.
Like groups have.
What the fuck?
It's not
I don't
down to
get it.
them not being as good. as previous groups. It's down to this cast being too savvy in general to be controlled by one group in general. There's one thing I want to bring up before the Stockwatch ratings, and that is that something I've noticed.
I think I'm gonna
that
look up a guide.
Players in this game seem to talk about a lot is, and I think this is influenced a lot by Xavier's HOH reign, which is primarily about who can I not piss off. But a lot of this talk about next week and who should we target, why, and
I saw 63 there.
Is, well, we can't piss off this many people. We can't piss off this person. We can't piss off, well, this is going to piss off the least amount of people. So that's what we should do. And I do think that is something to focus on, but I think this cast has been overly focusing on it. Mostly because Frenchie did what he wanted, and he immediately paid for it. Kyland and Xavier have both done the house will, and they are both still in the good graces of the house. And so the players in this season are really learning, like, don't make a splash with your HOH. And because of that, I think they are occasionally forgetting that when you're HOH and you make a move, you could change the entire structure of the house, right? So, like, if you make a move on the Kings and you're worried about the Kings being mad at you and retaliating, that you can sort of, like, you can put people in a position where they might want to retaliate, but maybe they can't. You take a note from Vanessa's book. Vanessa was never scared of pissing people off. She was always putting people in a position where they had to work with her, even if they didn't like her. Her social game was not very good, but people worked with her because she was able to put them in a spot where they felt like they had to. And that's an avenue in the game that I think a lot of these players have been overthinking, or like not thinking of as much.
So I guess it does change every time.
They're so focused on this one line of.
I might have already passed
it. I think that's something that could change because these people are very, very savvy, and I think they will start to see that as the game goes on, like, oh, we need to start really making moves and pushing our own agendas on our own. But I do think it's something worth noting right now. The game is being played in a way where everybody is trying to stay in good as much as possible in all circumstances.
Saw 23.
Yeah, and you can't keep that up.
Exactly.
You can't say, yeah, like, there's always going to be something, and I think that, I think also that you're not playing your best game if you're just trying not to upset people, because, then you're just kind of picking off the lowest person one by one, and eventually you're the lowest person, unless you've been controlling the game the whole time, which, that's going to be like one person. So I do think that, like, you need to be careful and also look at your position in the house and not just try and, appease everybody. I mean, yes, the first couple HOHs, I do think, like, yeah, just pick off one person. It doesn't matter. Like, don't like try and rock the boat right away, because, those are the easiest HOHs. You should really just get out, the lone person or the person who's pissing everybody off or whatever. But once you get down to it, I mean, the numbers are not going to be in your favor unless you're controlling the house. And so if you're not controlling the house, someone else is controlling the numbers, you're going to find yourself in a bad position coming up pretty soon. So yeah, I think they need to pay attention to that.
Yeah, and it's fine for the queens who have the ability to, if the queens encourage this kind of gameplay, the queens will continue to be safe, because if everybody's worried about, well, I can't piss off, a certain amount of people, then nobody's ever going to go after the queens, because the queens are the most protected, and they're always going to go after lower hanging fruit. If the queens are setting precedent that you take shots and protect people, and that may eventually come back around.
I'll be honest, I think I'm only going to do this one episode tonight. We'll see though.
Hannah, I'm talking about the Kings.
I'm not really.
I found some information about the Shadow Lord. To make the shot that pisses off the least amount of people.
That sure is. Wait, where are we at?
You should be.
Oh, we're just missing one, right? So we're missing sacrifice.
And I think they're overlooking that fact. So, okay. Are we ready to talk Stockwatch?
I think we are.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do the Stockwatch here. Here it is. Hopefully this is easily legible here.
Glasses on.
I can barely see it. All right. Let's go over this stuff here. We're gonna start with Alyssa. Now, of course, this is where we rate every player 1 through 10, a scale of 1 through 10. Where 1 is the worst, they have no chance of winning this game, that they have been playing terribly, about as bad as you can play. 10 meaning they've played this game as well as you can possibly play it. They're a favorite and doing extremely well with very few flaws. And then 5 is, somewhere in the middle there. About average, replacement. I told the audience at the start of this day, I sent out
Sorry, I'm trying to get some stuff here.
They're going to have their own say, and then all 3 of us will give our ratings, and we'll take an average, and that will influence the price on the Stockwatch game, where people are buying and selling shares of these players. So, let's start with Alyssa, who last week got a 5, and we'll see where it goes this week. Jacob, let's start with you. How do you feel about Alyssa?
So Alyssa, I was very hopeful. I have been very hopeful about Alyssa since the very first time she's been nominated, because I feel like we saw that bit of fire in her behind the moment she got put on the block. But I feel like last week and this week, a lot of her time is not spent building those social connections you need in a game like Big Brother. A lot of the times, are spent with Christian cuddling up with him, or kissing him under the blanket in X's bed and things like that, which could be cute for showman's lovers and for people loving the storyline or anything like that. But I don't feel like it's benefiting her in the slightest, besides having Christian as a target ahead of her in that instance. And I feel like she let go of a lot of her connections that she kind of potentially could have had this week just by being isolated to Christian. And I would just love to see her gain more agency in the game. And I mean, I feel like she's aware that her and Christian are targets, so he's fighting for that next HOH. And I feel like that next HOH is a pivotal HOH that could potentially shape out the game. But I don't have that potential that even after she does win that next HOH, potentially if she does, that anything will change with her game. I don't feel like more people will want to work with her. I don't feel like she will have those deeper connections. I feel like she will just be expendable at all costs. With that said, I am not very high on her. I am giving her a whopping 4.
4.
I thought you were about to say a 1. Like you said,
One.
what? And I was
I
like,
did say
whoa.
1.
Yeah, you were like, what? And I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be a 1. But okay, yeah.
I like her a little bit more.
Sense.
Also, don't get the Alyssa hate. As much people as they don't like her, I can get, you may think she's boring and not really playing the game, but I know a lot of people have to stand for her. I really don't understand why, but yeah.
Yeah, I think her connection with Christian is not great for her game. I think she would do much better if she wasn't with him. But at the same time, maybe he is a shield for her. So I feel like it's got good and bad parts to it. But it's just, I don't know. For me, I don't love it, and I don't want them to be doing that. I don't know. Whatever they're doing, they should do.
Whatever they're doing, they should stop.
Yeah, they should stop that. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like for me, she's doing fine. I feel like she's in a decent spot. Although, if people start to really say we need to take a shot at the Kings, I think I'd be a little worried for her. But at this point, I do feel like she's doing fine, and so I can't really say good or bad at this point. So I'm just gonna give her a 5.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot here. I think that Alyssa, I said week 1 that I felt like she was a 6th player who was in a slightly worse position than a 6 would be in, right? She was on the block at that point, and then last week she was fine. But still slightly in a precarious spot. This week, I think, again, I do think she has potential as a player. She is smart. She is somebody that takes proactive measures to position herself in a good spot. She actively talks to people, and she has plans to set herself up in a way that would be pretty good for her if it worked. However, I think that Alyssa in another season could be a very dominant force
We're very close
on
to the end
a
at this point.
majority Cool Kids alliance. If the Slaughterhouse stayed a thing, that could have been great for her. But she is playing with sharks in this game, and she is consistently one step behind. Because of that, even though she is still very capable in this game,
So it's
I would give her a 6, if not for the fact that she is in some danger next week. Especially with the Queens currently on the idea that they do want a shot taken at the Kings. They have recently somewhat changed their minds, and they are considering targeting Christian over her, which is a definite win for her. However, there is still too much of a likelihood that she could go on the block and that she could end up being sent home as early as next week. And so because of that, I can't quite give her the 6 I keep talking about when it comes to Alyssa. But I do think that if she survives the coming weeks, she may eventually get to a spot where she does become as dangerous as her potential says she could be. So watch out for Alyssa if she does not go home. But as of right now, she's a 5 for me, and a 5 from the audience. There you go.
Yep.
Alright, I think we'll head over there
I
and
think I need to see this potential that you're talking about, Taryn, because I genuinely don't see it. I don't see it.
And that's fair. I think a lot of people agree with you, Jacob. All right. So let's talk about Azah. Melissa, how do you feel about Azah?
Not so great. I've been very disappointed.
Oh my god, there's a lot of people live on Twitch right
now. Even though
now.
she has been doing herself no favors, she's still in a decent position because people in the house are still working with her. She is involved in some alliances, so I do think that she has that going for her. But I think she's putting herself. She's not helping herself. Let's just say that. I'm disappointed that she's kind of, I don't know, hitched onto the Britney wagon and is just like, I'm riding this thing till it's done. It's like, okay, maybe just kind of separate, still be friends and still work together, but don't sit there and be like, put me on the block. I want to go instead of her. It's like, no, don't do that. So, I gotta give her a 4, because if she wasn't still involved in these alliances, I'd go lower. But I think because she still has those alliances, it's better for her. But I'm really disappointed. I mean, anyone who says put me on the block instead is already a negative for me. So
I would give Azah 3.
It's
4
not
maybe.
great.
Actually, 4 is probably.
Azah.
Alright.
She, the potential that I saw in Azah, I'm feeling like is never going to come to fruition. I think that it could have. In another game, in different circumstances, if things had played out differently, I think that Azah could be good at this game, but she's not in that position. And I think most of the time she won't end up in that position, and that's because, she's just not social enough. She just doesn't go out there. She doesn't talk to people. She doesn't really, communicate enough, talk enough game. It's just not really even her thing. She talked a lot this week about how, this game just isn't really meant for her. And it honestly sounded like she doesn't really want to be there all that much. And I think that because of that, you really have to talk her a lot of points. I think that she has a great chance of making it to jury. I think she has a great chance of making it far in the game, because I don't think anybody's going to be particularly